Meet Codename Goose, your on-machine open-source AI agent, built to automate your tasks. Codename Goose is an intelligent and autonomous agent capable of handling complex tasks thanks to its core features. Connect with apps and tools you already use with extensions. Built on the Model Context Protocol, you can connect to extensions like GitHub, integrate JetBrains IDEs, access Google Drive, or build your own custom integrations for Goose. For a curated list of extensions, visit our docs. With a wide range of compatible large language model providers, you can choose and integrate your preferred model. You can also run Goose as a desktop app or through the command line interface using the same configurations across both. You can think of Goose as an assistant, ready to take your instructions and do the work for you. Able to handle a wide range of tasks across various engineering domains. Here are examples of tasks Goose has helped people with already. Goose has helped dive into a new project in an unfamiliar coding language, conduct code migration such as Ember to React or Ruby to Kotlin, increase code coverage, and even generate unit tests for a feature, and much more. To get started using Goose right away, check out our quick start and be the first to know about upcoming features by joining our community.
Hey everyone, happy Tuesday. My name is Roselle Scarlett. You're watching like Goosing Around, but this is like the external chatting with people outside of Block version. So today, this particular topic, and if you don't know what Goose is an open source on-machine AI agent. It's local to your machine is what I'm basically saying. And Ollama, on the other hand, also allows you to run LLMs locally. So when you combine both, you basically are able to run everything with your AI workflow locally. And today we're going to chat with Parth to learn more about this integration and to learn more about local and open source AI. I would love to know from the chat too, like where you all are chiming in from. I'm happy to see people in the chat like, hey, Ace, what's going on? Hey, Paul, you were ready from the beginning. Thank you for being here and waiting. Hey, AKA, I'm glad you made it for a live as well. And hey, Tanya. Hi. Oh, awesome. Hi, Cecil, and hi, Angie. All right, so people are tuning in from New York City and all that. Awesome. All right, I usually do an icebreaker, so we're going to do an icebreaker, talk about Parth a little bit, and then jump straight into a demo. So my icebreaker has nothing to do with tech. Valentine's Day just happened. Do you think it's a meaningful celebration or it's just a capitalist marketing scheme?
Damn, we're diving really deep into it real quick. All good. I feel like it probably started out with good intentions, but I now see a lot of different types of Valentine's celebrations happening. So I don't know. It's more recently, it's been making me think that there's got to be a little something more to it.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. I think that's an interesting perspective. I think it's meaningful, but I can see what you're saying. I can see what you're saying. I don't know if anyone else from the audience has their own perspective as well. Also, hey, from Zimbabwe, thank you for tuning in. All right. Oh, Angie's at the New Orleans airport. Thank you, Angie. All right. Parth, really quickly tell us how you got involved with Ollama, and then tell us, for folks who don't know, what Ollama even is.
Sure. So prior to Ollama, I was actually a startup founder, and I had been working on actually agents and LLMs work for the last year. And I was visiting SF, and one conversation led to another, met with the folks at Ollama. I had been using Ollama since very close to when it came out and obviously loved it, was using it in a lot of my own projects. And one conversation led to another and ended up joining the team. And for those of you who don't know what Ollama is, it's just basically the easiest way to run large language models on your personal computer, or even deploy it to the cloud.
Perfect. That was awesome. All right, we're going to jump into a demo very quickly. I'm going to do the first half where we talk about just how to do the setup, and Parth is going to show Goose and Ollama working together. So I am going to, and let me know if you can see my screen clearly or if you need me to fix anything. Let me get my mouse over here. But I'm going to show you all how you would start Ollama with Goose. So first off, you will want to run Ollama serve, or you can actually download the application on your like the desktop application, but I like using it from the command line. And then after that, you're going to want to run the particular model. In this case, I'm going to run Qwen 2.5, and then the 32B is like 32 billion parameters, and that's like, I guess, how much my computer can handle. Parth might do a slightly different size. So I'm going to go ahead and press run, and this means it's running. So now that I have both of these running, I'm going to go ahead and configure Goose with Ollama. So I'm going to do Goose configure, and then it's going to ask me what provider I want to use. If I want to configure provider, I want to use Ollama. And I did update the Ollama host before this, but I'll just show you guys how I did it. Basically, the local host is localhost 11434, which Parth told me spells llama. I'm not gonna lie, I don't see it. Like I don't see where it spells llama. Oh, I guess okay, 11A, and then I don't see how the
There you
3
go.
is the M.
It's like a little flipped over. So
Okay,
you
so
gotta
it's like
turn your head.
this. Okay.
Exactly.
And then like I said earlier, my model was gonna be Qwen 2.5 and then 32 billion parameters, and it should connect. We should see like a message that like the configuration was successful. So now that I'm done, we'll switch over to Parth to do a couple of really like a couple of demos with Goose and Ollama. Pray to the demo gods for us, because demo AI is always really tricky.
Cool. So we'll see how things are going here. And we'll kind of just, we'll debug live if we have to. First, I'll just quickly show what running Ollama looks like. So the first thing, let's run the exact same model that I'm going to be using for the demo, 2.5, 32B. So this is just running kind of Ollama. You can say hi, and you can see that it's a slightly bigger model, so it's going to take a little bit to respond. So you might have to wait a little bit and bear with me during this entire process. And I also have Ollama running with Ollama serve in the background. Cool. So now with Goose, as Rizal showed, she showed the configuration, and we're just going to pop up a new Goose session. So let's do Goose session. We can see that we're like collecting the logs over here. The Goose team's done a really fun job of making it super clear. And so first, why not just ask what all can you do? And this is all kind of running locally on my MacBook. And I absolutely love these little loading screens where they have like different terms. And right now, Qwen 2.5 32B is running in the background. Let me see if I can pull it up so we can see that it's running. And eventually, it's going to come back to us. With local LLMs, we often trade speed, and we also trade accuracy to a degree. But with that, what we're getting to run it fully locally on your computer without having to pay anyone any kind of money, which is always a bonus. And so in this case, I'm running a 32B model, which is about 20 gigabytes, and it's running fully locally. So over here, we can see that we have a lot of different tasks that Goose can do. So let's look through it. So we have developed tools extension. So it has a little text editor. It can do screen captures. And we also have web search, web scraping, just general kind of different things it can do, which is pretty cool. And in general, automating tasks on a Mac OS device, etc. Sweet. So why not? Let's take it for a spin. Let's do Goose. Can you open Safari for me? Now, I don't know if this is going to work, but we will see. Now, what's kind of happening in the background here is that Goose uses something called tools, and that is something that I worked on Ollama as well. And so what tools are is it's this way the model's been trained where it knows what to make use of. So over here, you can give it a computer controller tool, which essentially dictates what parameters the model should be outputting again and out. Okay, so it said tell application Safari to activate, and sometimes it's a bit finicky, so we're gonna try again. So let's say, can you open Safari, please? Again. Let's see if that works. Sometimes it takes a bit. Sometimes I have to tell it and prompt engineer it out. And sometimes it's just a bit flaky. It's kind of the trade-off you have a bit with local LLMs as well. And there's a lot of ways you can improve this entire output as well. A big part of this is that local LLMs struggle a little bit with your amount of context that we're feeding in. So if it has, oh, there we go. So it's built to open Safari. So sometimes it's a bit flaky, but this is pretty cool. So let's put this away. And we can kind of give it a multi-step application, multi-step kind of task as well. And this is where multiple tools can be returned. And so as I was mentioning earlier, tools are a way that the model's been trained to output certain data. Sometimes it's JSON, sometimes it's a function. And what that does is it lets the user know exactly what arguments to pass in to whatever function they've defined. So in this case, let's see if we can get it to do, can you open Safari please again and go to ollama.com. Let's see if that works. No idea again if it will, but that's the fun part about language models, is that you kind of have to deal with a little bit of uncertainty and you can program around it. And again, like the fact that this is running fully locally and with a larger model too makes a pretty big difference. And yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna say, demoing AI makes me feel like I'm a magician. I'm like, this might work. If it does, I'll blow y'all's minds. If not, I don't know.
Ta-da!
There it went.
Pretty cool. Yeah, nice. And so you can see that we're able to do like small automations. And a big part of this is also managing your model's context length. So context length is essentially how much knowledge a model has access to given what you provided it. So it obviously has a lot of knowledge that has from training, but context length is where whenever you pass in like a prompt, documents, data, that's how much of it is actually accessible. So those many tokens. And so that matters a lot when doing agents, tool calling, RAG, any kind of AI applications pretty much. So pretty cool. We're able to kind of dig through quite a few different things here. And there's a few ways that you can actually make your AI applications output better and be a bit more reliable. And we can dive into that in a bit. Rizal, over to you.
Perfect. Yeah. We have a couple of comments. I know I was like, I'll save them for the end, but we do have some comments that I think might be relevant to like right now. Angie was just saying Goose and Ollama are the local dream. And then Cecil had a question, and similar to Best Codes as well, is like, what type of computer do you have to run to like be able to run these big models? And then Cecil said like, sometimes he has a MacBook Pro M1, and sometimes the responses are pretty slow when doing tool calling. Do you have any hardware recommendations?
Yeah, I mean, the unfortunate answer for local development is having a computer with more VRAM. So for MacBooks, that's just more RAM, and for Windows computers, that's a GPU with a bigger memory size. So not necessarily always the GPU. If you're on a MacBook, you just need more RAM because they have the unified memory architecture. But overall, if you're finding it that it's slow, a few different things you can kind of play around with without having to upgrade your computer, because I know that is expensive. You can just go and use a different type of quantization. Quantization is essentially going from like the original precision of the weights to a smaller precision. So it's a bit smaller and can fit on your computers better. So by default, we use like a Q4 quantization on Ollama, or a type of Q4 quantization. And aside from that, we also, you could also just use a smaller model and see if that gives you enough accuracy for your task while still being relatively quick.
Awesome. Perfect. Angie said it's the privacy for her. I think there was a couple of others. Someone was asking, I don't know if you had already answered this. Are you using, is JSON grounded output for tool calling? I think so, right?
So there's a caveat here. We actually don't constrain it to be just JSON output at the moment. We only support JSON output for tool calling at the moment. And then we also have structured generation or structured outputs where we also use JSON. And that is more of like a guided approach where accurate JSON is always provided out, whereas tool calling is more so just validated as JSON. But there are plans to improve reliability and accuracy for tools as well. So all in the works.
Awesome. And then people are saying how much gigabytes of RAM are on MacBooks are recommended. What MacBook do you have?
I have a 128 gigabyte RAM MacBook, so I get to run all kinds of fun models for the most part. You do not need this big of a MacBook, although it is super nice to have. I will say that I get to run whatever I want. And I think if you're looking to like consistently run models on your computer, it depends again like on your use case. But I think for most, so a big way I started using Ollama was just building personal tooling. So this was like little scripts where I like built this thing called Ducky, which would answer my questions. Yeah, for real. Work provided, Ollama gave me this laptop and I'm very thankful for that one. But overall, like, I think that idea of like personal tooling, if you're going mainly for yourself and you don't need to serve models particularly, you can get away from like 7B to, ideally like 32B RAM, 32B size or parameter size models are good enough for most of your tasks. And I believe those models are about 20 gigs. So 32 GB RAM is probably a good baseline. And 16 gigabytes runs out. Your Chrome probably goes more than 16 GB most of the time. So super helpful. I think just to start with, I think if your main use case is your local development and personal projects, good enough.
Perfect. Yeah. And then there's two comments. These are more for me. I guess I can address. Somebody was asking how far are we from having Windows, Docker, WSL option. I believe we have the WSL option and we're working on the Windows one. From what I saw, it's more of the like CI/CD build time that's taking a while. But you can ask in Discord just to figure out where we're at. And you can also look at our GitHub as well, because we're open source. So you can see where we're at with everything. And then somebody else asks, not sure why Ollama doesn't work with the Goose desktop client, but it works only with the CLI. I have experienced that as well. I'll double check with the team on why that happens. And I can let you know in Discord if you hit me up. All right. So I'm going to make a little pivot. We want to talk about structured generation in a second, but I'm going to play a little quiz for for the audience. It's a video. Feel free to try your hardest to answer the questions in the chat. All right, y'all. I'll play it, and when we come back, we'll talk to Parth about structured generation. Alrighty. Minus right now, I'm probably not gonna do a demo to run Goose with a local LLM, but maybe in the future. I'm dying at you all's comments on like answering the questions. Good job. And I was just laughing at people copying each other. Okay, but let's get into the structured outputs and stuff like that. First off, I think you did mention tool calling, but do you want to like explain it to me like I'm five for anybody that's like, I don't know, that's new to AI, and then also explain structured generation or output like I'm five as well. A little
Like
hard.
5
But
is going to be a bit tough, but I think we can do it. So for tool calling, think that when you go to school and you learn how to do math, it's like you're being taught how to do the patterns in the math again and again. So, you learn how to do addition, you learn how to do multiplication, stuff like that. Similarly, a model gets shown that particular type of pattern again and again. And so it kind of learns how to output that same pattern. And so that's why we see certain tool calling do JSON. Sometimes they do Python functions, sometimes other type of stuff. So it's a big mix. And then for structured outputs, it is kind of a different idea, where structured outputs is more so instead of me, let's say you are at a poetry competition, and in general, for poetry, you can say whatever you want, right? Or in the English language, you can say whatever you want. But now that it is poetry, it needs to sound better. It needs to flow a bit better. And so what you are doing is you're being told what words you can say and cannot say, pretty much. So you're able to come up with better rhymes. You're able to come up with better things that make sense. Or even if we go back to kind of learning the math piece, in this case, the model actually doesn't particularly need to learn math, although it helps with accuracy. But what we can do is we just say what format it should constrain it to. So what that means is if I say 2 plus 2, what is 2 plus 2? The model can spit out a bunch of letters and say, oh, the number is 4. Or I can get it to just output the number. And so that can be constrained, and you tell the model what all it can and cannot output, pretty much.
Okay, I like that. I like those analogies. It's like, at least from what I heard, tool calling is basically like the model's learning what it can do, and then the structured output is like, here are the rules. Don't do this, but you can do this. And somebody said, well, I don't know if I understand AKA in this situation, but they said it's like when British people curse, it just sounds nicer. Okay, I guess so. All right. Do you want to show us? I think you had a
Yes.
demo of structured output and other stuff. Do you want to go ahead and show us that?
Yes, let me share my screen.
Okay.
So I'll show a couple different things. The first is just going to be like simple tool calling and with our Ollama Python repository. And so you can import Ollama pretty simply. And we make use of chat for talking to the model. Again, you have to make sure Ollama is running in the background. And we have some pretty simple functions. You've probably seen these same examples many, many times. But
Ebony said, please zoom in. Sorry to interrupt you.
zoom in? Yes,
Yeah.
we can do that. I think this should
Let
be
us
it.
know if that's good, y'all. Sorry that I interrupted you. You
No
were on a roll.
But yeah, basically define two functions, add two numbers, and subtract two numbers. Should be relatively simple. And with our Python repository, a nice thing you can do is you can actually pass the function directly into our into the client. Versus usually when you're doing tool calling, you might have seen something like this where you have to define the schema in JSON for what your tool can do. So for subtracting numbers, I've defined the schema, and I've just put it down into available functions. The question is, what is 3 plus 1? And over here, you can see that I can pass in tools as a list into chat. So this is using the Ollama Python package or SDK. And so we have both the function as well as just to show that you can still do the other way, which is the schema itself. And then over here is just calling the tool and making sure that it runs. So let's try it out. Examples. Cool. So we did a bit of back and forth over here where we asked it, what is 3 plus 1? And it said, okay, I now need to use add two numbers. This is one of the tools I've been given. So either, like as a model, you have options between two tools, subtract or add. I'm adding a question which involves adding, so that's what I use. And then it's able to give the function output. And then you can actually feed this back into your model saying, okay, this is what the output was. Can you, output it nicely? And then it has a nice final response where it says the answer to 3 plus 1 is 4. Very cool. So that's just a simple example with tools. Now, diving into structured outputs. This may seem a bit more daunting, but honestly, it is very straightforward. And once you get the hang of it, you can really boost a lot of your accuracy as well as reliability from large language models. And structured outputs, honestly, is one of my favorite ways to make use of LLMs, because I think what LLMs are great for is going from very unstructured data to structured data, right? Like making sense of things when regular software cannot, encompass all of the different ways that that data can be shown. And so in this case, it'd be very hard to pull out exactly what I'm looking for. So again, we're using Ollama, and in this case, Pydantic as well for defining our different schemas. So in this case, I've defined two. The first is just like a friend list, which encompasses a list of friends. And in friend info, I have their name, age, and if they are available. So very cool. And if we scroll down, and what I can do over here is in the messages. So think of this as like what the model is kind of looking through, right? So I say I have two friends. Very nice, a lot of friends. The first is Ollama, who's 22 and is busy saving the world. And the second is Goose, 23 years old and wants to hang out. Return a list of friends in JSON format. So with structured outputs, I highly recommend doing this part because it's constraining what needs to be generated. And the model is just going to output better tokens if you tell it a bit better of what you're looking for, right? A model can't interpret your thoughts, so please tell it what you want. And over here, you essentially just dump this friend list with a model JSON schema. So essentially, we're also passing a JSON schema in the format. I have this thing commented out here where you can actually pass in this dictionary as well, which is, again, maps to the same thing, which is the schema. We set the temperature to 0 to make the responses a bit more deterministic. And what we're doing at the end is just making sure that what we're getting back from the language model fits exactly what we're looking for. So, moment of truth. Python examples, structured outputs, .py. Sweet, that was pretty quick. So we get back this friend list, which is now a Pydantic object. So we can actually operate on this too, where we can say, friends response dot friends, and then 0 dot name. You can like access all these different things, which would be like kind of difficult to usually access. And it makes writing code a lot simpler. This works with TypeScript as well. There's like, you can use Zod, and structured outputs works pretty much the same way with good, nice, strong typing. Cool. Another thing that I will show is you can actually use images. So I hope there's some Cars fans here.
I can't wait to see that.
So we have Lightning McQueen, my favorite, and what we're going to do is go to structured outputs, images. And so here, it's kind of the same idea. I've defined a couple Pydantic objects, which one is just the objects, which we're using over here, name, confidence, and attributes. And this is kind of just describing the scene, as you can see. So let me just make sure I am looking at the right image. So kachow.jpg, and then again, analyze this image and return a detailed JSON response, object scenes, etc. So do you see like how I'm kind of using this prompt to guide the LLM?
Yes.
It's not just like, oh, just tell me what's in this picture, because the LLM's not going to know what format we want it back in. So there's a little bit of extra work that you do, but it really, really improves the output of your model. So in this case, we're using Llama 3.2 Vision. I'm going to run it first, actually, because it usually takes a little bit. So it's going to go run off for a little while. And with the Ollama Python repository, or SDK, sorry, again, you can just kind of pass in your images as a path under messages. And again, we're setting temperature to 0 in this case as well. Same thing over here, image analysis. Once we do model validate JSON, it's coming back as a Pydantic object. Awesome. So this is one of my favorite things.
Cool.
Able to like identify kind of everything that ran. So it says colors are red. It's on a racetrack. It understands that, even though this image is kind of like blurry and small. So it's pretty cool that it's able.
Impressive.
And you know, attributes large eyes, which is true. I think Queen does have large eyes. There's another one I'll run in the background.
Wait, I have a question. You might have said this. Is confidence 1.0 really confident or low confidence?
Should be. So that should technically be 100% confidence.
Okay, cool.
Again, these numbers, any kind of like float value or number when you're asking a model for like a confidence, it's just using, it's like picking what token to put out. So it's not a number that's extremely believable, but it's good for like use cases like this, where you're pulling like a number out of a out of some data you provided versus like confidence, because it's very arbitrary. Let me see if I updated yeah, so we'll run it again. The other image I have over here is this beautiful sunset in Palo Alto. And let's see what it returns. So we're expecting, you know, some kind of information about that picture, similar to our racetrack with Lightning McQueen.
I can't wait to see the output. Awesome.
Yeah, so this one's pretty cool because it like goes pretty in depth into all things that it sees. So it notices that it's sunset, there's hills, there's trees, and describes it relatively well. You know, talks about the different colors it sees. It's evening, it's outdoors. So this is like a crazy part because this is an 11B model as a whole. And what that means is about like 12, 13 gigabytes of RAM, and you're able to get like really, really in-depth analysis on whatever pictures you have. So you can use it for whatever kind of different use cases, whether it's like object recognition or, you know, if you're recognizing different people, whatever that may look like for you. There's just so much you can do.
Wow, I'm really impressed. I didn't know it was going to like go as granular as like, okay, I see one object that's the sunset, one that's hills, and one that's trees. I thought it was going to like add those as like attributes or something, but that's really cool that it was able to like pinpoint each of them.
Yeah.
This is cool. Okay, so is there more to demo, or is this it? Like, I think
we're
my
good.
mind is okay, cool. Awesome. All right, so we have a couple of questions, but I think what I'm going to do, right, before I want to give more people times to come up with more questions as well. Also, there were some comments. Some people said "ka-chow moment." I guess they're big fans, and so I'm going to play a video by Ebony on just demoing how to use Goose, a particular extension, and then we'll come up with y'all's questions. Y'all put it in the chat, and I have some questions of my own as well.
Want Goose to scan your code for security vulnerabilities? Here's how to plug and play. Let's provide Goose with the commands it needs to connect to the Knowledge Graph memory extension. First, we're going to build security intelligence into Goose. So things like SQL injection is linked to data theft risk, and authentication weakness are associated with poor session management. Now, Goose isn't just storing this information, it's actively structuring it into a knowledge graph, understanding these security risks, and recognizing the best ways to mitigate them. Now that Goose has this knowledge, let's put it to work. Hey Goose, review this API endpoint for any security issues and any security risks. Goose is amazing. Goose has analyzed the security risk, searched its knowledge graph for patterns, and suggested a more secure implementation. To get started with Goose, visit block.github.io/Goose.
Cool. People said they like our videos. Thanks on behalf of my team. And then we do have 2 questions. Someone was asking, I think this is at the beginning of it. Using files for repeated use of agent, doing the same thing in CLI interaction. I think I don't understand anymore. I understood it at the beginning of this when they first asked it. But do you understand it or no? Can you
I'm having a little bit of tough time.
okay. Can you repeat AKA because I'm not following anymore. All right. And this is a question that I did have too, but it was asked ahead of time. What's on the roadmap for Ollama?
Yeah, we've the entire team's like super excited for a lot of new stuff coming out soon. And some of you might have already been seeing some of it. So we've been working on Ollama's new engine, where we're just aiming to improve reliability kind of across the board and hopefully improve performance in the long run of things. And this will also just improve how many models we can support, how well we can run them, and really just focusing on the entire user experience of every single person who uses Ollama.
Perfect. Okay, and then I have a question on we've seen that like it's possible to have like local AI and all of that. I'm curious like what needs to happen for this to become the default, because right now running local AI models and AI agents is not really it's kind of a new thing. Everyone goes for like GPTs. I'm curious from your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, we're already seeing models get way, way, way better very quickly, and they're all open source models. So it really just gives us this way to think about like everything that, even just like in terms of a year ago, we have open source models which beat GPT models from a year ago, and there's going to be a point at which when a model is good enough for a lot of tasks, and with that you get really high reliability for your work and your agents or whatever tasks you're trying to accomplish, while also maintaining this kind of entire open source aspect where you can just run the model yourself, and you can either do it locally, you can deploy your own on your own private cloud, or however you choose to run the model. With Ollama, it's just super simple. And overall, like improvement in models, but then also there's just going to be a lot of tooling, which is continuing to get built around open source. And it's been really interesting to see that. And actually, just today, there was like a new paper that dropped where a team from Stanford was using Ollama locally, and then it's called Minions, where it uses a kind of like a supervisor model to make sure that the minions are working correctly. And so that was a really cool thing to see, where you're mainly doing a lot of the work on your computer, and like an online model just kind of verifies and checks that the outputs are good. It's really cool. Highly recommend people to check it out.
Perfect. That's kind of cool. I'm looking forward to that. All right, so I'm going to do 2 more questions from the audience that I see and 1 more question from me, and then we'll wrap. Okay. Any plans to support MCP? First off, I just want to say Goose supports MCP. I'm just putting that out there. But okay, go ahead. Parth.
Yeah, it's definitely something I've played around a lot with, and it's really, really cool. We've spoken to the team about it too. Just really cool work overall. I think the way I currently see it is that MCP is like this really great bridge for so many people. And I think where we sit is a bit further away from like the application layer, where we're just providing kind of the easiest way to run LLMs. And so we expect people to build and integrate MCP using Ollama and like attaching it easily, versus us providing a way to do it. I think makes a bit more sense.
I agree with that. I do think that makes more sense since you all are like more in the runtime area. And then Best Codes is trying to rephrase what AKA was saying. So let me see. Are files best suited for repeated tasks where the agent needs to reuse information, while CLI interaction is better for one-off tasks that don't require saving context? I would
Nice.
say that's a good question. I think I've used, I don't know for you, Parth, because you've built agents. For me, I think kind of, yeah, like I'll use files like Goose Hints or cursor rules or something like that if I'm going to be like repeating a task. But if it's just a one-off thing, I'll just continue to use the CLI. I don't know if you feel the same, Part.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Just the only thing that you should probably be mindful of when using files is that sometimes they get very large. And especially with local LLMs, you want to think about how much space you're allocating on your computer to have enough context length, where the model can, as I mentioned earlier, like the model knows like how much it can look at in terms of information that you've provided. So if your file is too big, the model's not going to be able to keep all of it in its memory. And what that means is it's not going to output the things you want it to output. So I think files are great. Just make sure they're not like too big.
Good advice. I did not think about that. And then my last question to you is just like why are tools like Goose and Ollama important to the ecosystem and to you, like just from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, we can go back a while for this. So prior to my own startup, when I started using Ollama, I was working at a company, and we were not particularly allowed to copy paste stuff into ChatGPT at the time. It was like October 2023, and so that's how I actually discovered Ollama, because I was very focused on having privacy. And I just wanted a way to be able to run my own models. Like, why do I need to go to this big company to do it? I think there's like a really strong aspect of empowerment where anyone feels comfortable to use LLMs and know that it's kind of very contained. So I thought that was really cool. And in general, like that's what drew me to both Ollama and Goose. I think like since I've been playing around with Goose, it's been really cool to know that a lot of these things that are getting built just work with local models. And yes, another, as mentioned by Best Codes, local models work without internet. I use Ollama all the time on the plane. It's a lot of fun.
Wait a minute, I didn't even think about that. Of course it does. Oh my god. That's cool. I'm gonna I don't know, I just want to try it without the internet. That's awesome. Yeah. And I do think that's a really big benefit of that data, having control over what you're doing and then being able to access it without internet. Because think about all the people who might be in more rural areas that don't have as great internet. This could be a really good way for them to just dive into artificial intelligence. All right. That well, I'll just summarize some of the stuff I learned. Like what really jumped out at me was just some of like the prompting tips that you did, like setting the temperature to 0, made there be more precision, asking the local LLM like what models it has, using structured output, and then you asked like for JSON detail at the end of a prompt, which was cool. So I think those are all really good tips because I think from what I saw in the community, everybody was excited about Ollama and open source LLMs, but we were like not sure how do we get it to work, and we're so used to like more cloud LLMs. So this was really, at least for me, this was really enlightening and eye-opening. And I want to thank everyone. Oh, and Bestco said it also helps with transparency. That's a good point. It brings people closer to the AI model process. That's so true. Let me see. Why do you use cursor when you could be running? Right. That's true.
Yeah, I can answer this one.
Okay.
I mean, I'm friends with the cursor team, so obviously have support. But then also in general, I think like there's a lot of use cases for local LLMs running fast. And I actually make use of both. So I'll usually spin up DeepSeek, like a distill of DeepSeek on my computer. And I kind of run things in parallel. So I really like cursor for its tab and like how quick it is. So you kind of need a lot more of that speed. And then I'm sure that we're going to get to like smaller models which do very particular tasks super well. Like, I don't know, like maybe a model which just does autocomplete for my tabs. And then we can build better open source alternatives. So there's just so much that you can do. And I think a lot of this is in progress. But until then, I'll be using Cursor.
Awesome. I didn't even think about the fact that you were using cursor. Do you have any? I'm the type of person that can just talk on and on forever, but I do know like we should wrap. Do you have any like last things you want to say before I like play our like goodbye video?
Yeah, I mean, just thank you all for joining, and try out Ollama with Goose. My DMs are always open. My Twitter is Thanos Thinking, and feel free to message me if you run into any issues, or open a GitHub issue and tag me, whatever works. And yeah, thank you all for watching.
Awesome. Thank you for coming on. I really appreciate the time and even debugging using Goose and Ollama with me. I want to remind people we have a Discord at discord.com/block open source. If you want to interact with us and like ask us questions, again, ollama.com if you want to use the product. And he said he's Thanos Thinking on Twitter. And our open source repo for Goose, which is an AI agent, is github.com/block/goose. I will see you all next week. Bye.
Want Goose to fetch and process content from the web? Here's how to plug and play. Enable the built-in fetch extension. Now let's play. Hey Goose, create a web page that fetches programmer jokes from the official joke API, display the joke, and let users guess the punchline. Show if they're right or wrong. In less than a minute, Goose fetched a joke from the API, processed the response, and built an app that uses this data. Thanks, Goose! What's the object-oriented way to become wealthy? Is it inheritance? You're such a silly goose. To get started with Goose, visit block.github.io/goose.